What have you for me today, Lord? What have you for me today? It's here at your feet I want to be. What have you for me today?
You're listening to The Sons Are Free. The topic today is Stop and Ask Directions. Driving west on Interstate 80 in Iowa, we followed another car for about half an hour before we both exited for the rest stop. Gesturing at road signs, the passengers shot looks at each other several times, but I thought nothing of it. After using the facilities, my wife and I observed the foursome huddled around the map with bold red "You Are Here" arrow, arguing among themselves. The driver stopped me to ask for directions, explaining they'd come from Davenport and were on their way to Peoria, where in less than an hour, the girl was scheduled to open an important social event as pageant queen. "Oh my," I replied. "Peoria is about 3 hours back that-a-way." So how does a driver miss the mile markers, posted every mile, or the large green and white traffic signs that count down the miles to the next city or interchange? You'd think that first sign, Iowa City, 40 miles, would have told the driver they were headed in the wrong direction. Surely Iowa City, 30 miles, would have had the driver looking for the nearest exit, or prompted the passenger in the front seat to dig through the glove box for a map. Even if completely oblivious to all the road signs, it was early evening, and we were driving into the sun. Last I checked, it still sets in the west, and Peoria was to the east. Not pulling off the road until the DOT rest stop after Iowa City? No way. Sadly, that's what happened. Lord knows I'm not immune to getting lost and refusing to ask for directions. After all, I'm a man, and that's genetic, or so my wife tells me. I'll never forget the time my band took 2 vehicles to a concert, when after a potty stop, I took the wrong freeway on-ramp and was driving back toward home, unawares. That is, till I spotted my bandmates across the median, driving in the opposite direction and pointing at me to turn around. Even now, 40 years later, that same interchange confuses me. At least now I have a GPS to get me pointed in the right direction. So why is it so difficult for a man to stop and ask for directions? Even one who knows he's lost. And what makes us think that doing the same thing everyone else is doing is the right way? Or more importantly, that's what God wants from us. This time of year, Christmas time, always brings up a torrent of thoughts and emotions for me, from which countless mind-boggling questions emerge. None are more difficult for me to answer than this one. How is it the Bible can so clearly and consistently declare the will of God for men, which is to take up the cross and follow Jesus, but instead we celebrate Jesus via weekly religious services and annual celebrations of Christmas and Easter? Admittedly, I never gave that much thought when I was a churchgoer, until the time I asked to celebrate my birthday the way I wanted, and was told by my sister-in-law, "No, we will celebrate your birthday the way we want, and you'll like it." Blind. Born blind, all of us. And stubborn. Brute beasts, wrote Asaph in the Psalms. Stiff-necked, that's what the prophet said. That's the only answer I could come up with anyway. The Father has told us what He wants from us, but we do our own thing and expect Him to be satisfied with it. No, God, we'll celebrate your Son the way we want, and you'll like it. Oddly, the Father's response is about the same as mine was. Well then, have a good time, I replied, and left them to party without me. We'll all have to give an account for our actions someday. How many mile markers and road signs have we sped past, oblivious to their warning? Do we ever stop and look to the Spirit and the Word to assess the direction we're going? Or do we just keep driving in what so clearly is the wrong direction? While there are many enjoyable sights and sounds at Christmas time, I'm nonetheless grieved by the blind ignorance of men, which is never more evident than during our rote holiday celebrations. Isn't it time to admit we're lost and to stop and ask Him for directions? Would we be so lost if before we set out on a mission, we got His direction first and went no further or faster than His leading? Imagine if the Israelites had tried to outrun the cloud, or began diving into the sea before God parted it. It is in waiting that we find God has a better way, a higher thought and purpose. But if we hit the road as if we're the driver and God is the passenger, we get all kinds of lost. I'd like to wrap up with a song called Bumper Sticker Witness. It's a slightly embellished story from my youth and the tendency to speed out ahead of God. A costly lesson with a song to remind me not to be a jerk. Enjoy.
At last the service ended. Man, the sermon was a bore. I wish the church had padded pews, 'cause man, my buns get sore. I walked out to the parking lot and eased into my car. The sticker on the bumper said, Christ is the morning star. Well, rubber squealed and the engine roared as I pulled out on the street. A cloud of smoke left in the air made all them deacons wheeze. I stepped on the gas and I pulled out to pass every car and truck in sight. There never was a driver I could stand to be behind. I looked ahead, but not in time to slow down for a black and white. The rear view mirror filled up quick with the cruiser's flashing lights. I pulled onto the shoulder and brought my car to a stop. Rolling down the driver's window, I looked up at the cop. Well, he was 8 feet tall and he looked mean. It was the biggest smoky I'd ever seen. He raised his clipboard and started to write, "Your license, sir, please step outside." Well, I pleaded with the officer, but nothing seemed to work. He frowned and said, "There's no excuse for driving like a jerk." 77 miles an hour is a serious violation. When you start to speed again, remember this citation. pulled back on the freeway and shifted through the gears. The words I mumbled at the cop would have surely burned his ears. I fumed about the ticket and how much I'd be fined. The thought of someone else's safety never crossed my mind. I was finally home and I slammed the door and walked around the car. The sticker seemed to speak to me. Christ is the morning star. Father, please forgive me. I'm ashamed of what I've done. What kind of witness have I been for Jesus Christ, your Son?
Thank you for listening to The Sons Are Free. I'm Jack Hilser. Until next time.